everyone hear me?
Yes.
How would you describe the relationship between the bond between Sherlock and Mycroft?
Like that. We based really the primary inspiration for their relationship is from the Billy Wilder film, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, which is a huge influence on us. It's a wonderful film, and that's the first time that their relationship is much less friendly. In fact, slightly chilly, and in fact, Mycroft is sort of the head of the Secret Service, really. And that was, we took that lead from Billy Wilder, and so it's really, it's a funny thing, really. I suppose Mycroft actually cares deeply about him, but he wants to bring him inside the circle. He wants him in the tent pissing out, as they say. And what he can't really bear is that his younger brother is a wild card. He's a private detective, and he wants, he's a brilliant man. He should be working for the government, as Mycroft is. So it's from a position of caring deeply, but without any actual emotion. But that's, as I said before, it's very important.
Okay.
It's not that Sherlock and Mycroft are not capable of emotion. They clearly are. It's just they choose not to because it's too dangerous. They absent themselves from it, or certainly Mycroft does. And Sherlock, I think, is tempted more often. Oh. It's not real.
A gente acabou de assistir isso. Genial! Ele caiu no chão, velho.
You two behave like grown-ups.
We sell phones, I blog about it, and he forgets his pants. So the case, Mycroft.
What, the hiker and the backfire? I glanced at the police report, a bit obvious, surely.
Transparent.
Time to move on, then. We are in Buckingham Palace, at the very heart of the British nation. Sherlock Holmes, put your trousers on. Your client.
And my client is?
Illustrious, in the extreme, and remaining, I have to inform you, entirely anonymous. Mycroft.
Harry, may I just apologise for the state of my little brother?
His home occupation, I imagine. And this must be Dr. John Watson, formerly of the 5th Northumberland Fusiliers.
Hello, yes.
My employer is a tremendous fan of your blog.
Your employer?
Particularly enjoyed the one about the aluminium crutch. And Mr. Holmes the younger. You look taller in your photographs.
Take the precaution of a good coat and a short friend. Mycroft, I don't do anonymous clients. I'm used to mystery at one end of my cases. Both ends is too much work. Good morning.
Get off my seat, or what?
Oh, I'll just walk away.
Walk away!
Who is my client?
Take a look at where you're standing and make a deduction. You are to be engaged by the highest in the land. Now, for God's sake, put your clothes on. Get your minds out of the gutter. Hello. Dreadful. It's miserable. Next question. It's lovely. Benedict's a gentleman, a lovely man. I've known him for a long time now. He is very grateful to the show for what it's done for him. He loves it. Everyone loves doing it. So it's always very hard work, especially trying to learn those great big deductions. But it's an awful lot of fun, and that's why we do it. It's particularly nice when we started the third series. He'd just come back from doing Star Trek and Osage County and all these big movies. 12 Years a Slave. I don't know what happened to that film. But he's very happy to come back to rainy old Cardiff to do our show. So that's very good. It's like being in a petting zoo.
Raised to
I think we might be having too many clips of information. Everyone's
planning an attack. That's what secret terrorism organizations do, isn't it? It's their version of go off.
An agent gave his life to tell us that.
Oh, perhaps he shouldn't have done. Perhaps he's just trying to show off.
None of these markers of yours is behaving in any way suspiciously. Your move.
My craft, but you have to trust me. I'll find the answer. It'll be an odd phrase in an online blog, or an unexpected trip to the countryside, or a misplaced, lonely heart sad. Your move.
I've given the Prime Minister my personal assurance you're on the case.
I'm on the case. We're both on the case. Look at us right now. Oopsie. Can't handle a broken heart. How very telling.
Don't be smart.
That takes me back. Don't be smart, Sherlock. I'm the smart one.
I am the smart one.
I used to think I was an idiot.
Both of us thought you were an idiot, Sherlock. We had nothing else to go on till we met other children.
Oh, yes, that was a mistake.
Ghastly. What were they thinking of?
Probably something about trying to make friends.
Oh, yes. Friends. Of course, you go in for that sort of thing now.
And you don't. Ever.
If you seem slow to me, Sherlock, can you imagine what real people are like? I'm living in a world of goldfish.
Yes, but I've been away for 2 years.
So?
Oh, I don't know. I thought perhaps you might have found yourself a goldfish.
Change the subject. Now.
I think we should stop having clips and just have coffee. We could raise this up and sit down now.
Tadinho, ele queria dar uma cadeira.
Too old for this. We can come forward a bit, shall we?
Hello.
É só ligar o microfone.
So, what are your favorite moments from each season?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm very fond of the introduction of Sherlock in the first episode, and we had a bit of a battle trying to convince the BBC that we could hold out that long before you see him upside down with the zip from the body bag. But it tells you everything you need to know. I love the swimming pool end of the Great Game. Scandal in Belgravia is my favourite episode. I'm kind of and then I suppose, and obviously at the end of Reichenbach. I'm choosing everything. I think there's only 9 episodes. I love them all.
Have you ever think about raising the numbers of Sherlock's episodes?
We can't really. It started. We ended up doing 90-minute episodes sort of by accident because we made a 60-minute pilot, and that was going to be the format of the series. It's going to be 6-hour-long episodes, and I think if we'd done that, we would have. Everything would be very different, really, about it. We'd probably do, we'd do one where it was mostly Dr. Watson or where Mrs. Hudson investigated or something like that. But then the BBC asked us if we'd do it as 90-minute episodes, primarily because they'd had a success with Wallander, with Kenneth Branagh, in the same format. So once we worked out that was how it was going to be, they naturally took on a kind of film-like feel and scale. And when you're telling stories that big, that's how it has to be, really. So writing 3 films is quite a lot of work, and then getting everyone together is increasingly difficult to get everyone's diaries to align. So we couldn't really do more than 3 every couple of years, I'm afraid. I mean, we'd certainly like to reduce the time, but by the time we've finished and then everyone starts gearing up again, it roughly takes about that long. I mean, these three were ready to show at the end of last year, but then in the end it was only a few weeks difference between putting them out at the new year, where they I say traditionally once before gone out. So it's really that, you know.
Have you thought about doing original stories for Sherlock?
Well, they are really. That's the thing. I mean, some of them are based much more on the original stories than others, but the bulk of, the bulk of his last vow, say, there's a little bit of the structure of Charles Augustus Milverton and a little bit of his last vow, but most of it is new. Most of the Great Game, you know, the Blind Banker, they're new stories. So we never really thought about it in that way. We pick and choose bits and pieces. Sometimes, as a rule of thumb, I'd say that the original story could sort of make the first 15 or 20 minutes of a 90-minute episode, but after that you're on your own. You know? So, I mean, they're all already largely new. We'd sort of also certainly think about everything being canonical, really, all the different versions. There's a particular thing in the Reichenbach Fall when Moriarty is walking up the stairs and Sherlock's playing the violin and he stops and Moriarty stops and then he starts playing again, and that's from one of the Rathbone films, The Woman in Green. It's just a brilliant piece of filmmaking. We thought, we'll have that. Thank you very much.
Does he have any chance of Dr. Watson's bulldog making appearance?
Dr. Watson's bull mastiff. We haven't really thought about it. We've got a bloody baby in there. We'll do about a dog as well. Maybe the dog could eat the baby. Brilliant. Thank you. There's the solution. Fine.
Microphone
I wouldn't
thinks
cause any trouble with it. No controversy in that.
Are there any plans for adaptations from other authors from British classics?
You mean people who've written Sherlock Holmes stories?
Yeah, other authors from like Charles Dickens, from the modern times.
You mean, have I thought about
Yes.
modernising? No. No, I mean, it would work. I think it depends on what you want to do. I've just directed a ghost story last Christmas for BBC Two and an M.R. James ghost story, and it's actually an Edwardian story, but I set it in the 50s to give it a slightly less obvious sort of setting. But I mean, you know, if the original material is good enough, then it can always stand modernisation. I think it depends. You know, there's something particular about Sherlock Holmes because he was a man of his age. It's actually not that difficult to find a parallel. I think you'd probably struggle updating the Three Musketeers because it's very particular to its time. But some things definitely would. It's just Sherlock is a very particular thing because it's a passion project of Steve and myself. I'm often asked, you know, what do you want to bring back next? And I don't want to bring anything back. I want to do new things. It's just very, very hard to get them off the ground, unfortunately, because people automatically respond to an existing brand. And Sherlock is the most famous brand in the world.
Do you prefer writing for a classic doctor, like you did in so many books, or writing for a current doctor in a new series?
Oh, Doctor Who now. Well, they're very different things. I wrote 2 books about past doctors, and that was like an exercise in nostalgia, and I loved doing that, particularly the John Pertwee book because he was my doctor, and like trying to everything. No, with the camera. And so that was like trying to make it, you know, the ideal John Pertwee story. But it's much more exciting to write for a new doctor because it's all to play for. You're creating new things. It's much more of an exciting template. Is someone talking? Who's talking? Disgraceful.
This It's just
I
then
can hear the
translate.
translator, someone else's talk.
Yeah.
I shall speak to them very severely.
Dad, it's my dad. Sorry.
You're bad or your dad?
Yeah, my dad.
So we all know you love horror movies. How does that affect your writing for Sherlock and Doctor Who?
Profoundly.
A lot of people died. A lot of people died.
Well, it depends really. With something like The Hounds of Baskerville is deliberately essentially a modern horror film, but it affects my sort of sensibility always because those are my favourite things. So with Doctor Who, sometimes they're more light-hearted. The one I'm writing at the moment, though, I'm doing it deliberately as a horror. It's a full-on horror, it's a body horror, because that's good, scary. And to me, that's the thing that I always loved most about Doctor Who is how scary it was, and I like that. Nothing wrong with scaring children.
Now we're going to throw the questions to the public.
She's gonna.
So you have to raise your hands. You have to be good.